without legal. First, we had Naki Logix, which is a private company, and what they're doing, earbud-based measuring facial microgestures, small head movements, control computer screens for quadriplegics instead of using sip and puff, which is very intrusive. It's a great idea. And we had Mark Gotze, who was also the chairman of Exro. And, I can tell that he, a serial entrepreneur and very successful one, is very excited about the opportunities here. And the one thing that stood out to me was the vehicular awareness, which is, if you have a Tesla, they use an internal camera, which I don't think is very good. But yeah, if your head starts to nod, and especially for truck drivers, commercial vehicles, you can get an alert from that. Just these are huge end markets that Naki is able to address as a very small, very early stage company, but one to watch, absolutely. Secondly, we had Nano One Materials, Dan Blundell, one of my favorite CEOs, and communicate with the company regularly, always watch the stock, write about them. But what was new today, I thought, was the royalty and joint venture, new slide in their deck, it's number 16, that is telling you that this idea company, these extremely smart people, are getting closer to commercialization. But Nano One is never going to make a battery, and Nano One is probably never going to make a complete cathode. So what they have is process. One pod is their patented name for it, and really the broader idea is what they call it, metal to cathode active material. And it's just, this whole process could be a lot greener. If you're getting your graphite from Mozambique, putting it on a ship to China, refining it there, putting it in a battery there, which then gets exported to Europe, because Elon's doing that a lot these days. I don't know. Have we really saved any carbon? I don't think so. So Nano One has the technology and the chemistry in place to refine the process, so the materials don't need to be refined as much, and that saves a huge amount of carbonization or decarbonization, whichever way you want to look at it. And I think that, again, it's just what you want to look for. Companies that size in that stage of life, which is pre-revenue, really, is that they're signing up a lot of new customers and doing a lot of what they call JDAs, joint development agreements, with other companies as well. I mean, you want to see those press releases coming, and that nobody bats 1,000, so they're not all going to hit. But what Dan and his team have really is a better mousetrap, I think, on the cathode side. And as ESG takes over, as people are pushing these cars as green vehicles, the process itself kind of brown, and I think it can be one of the ways to do that. Also, in terms of the end market, is buses. And Elon gets all the attention, but it's an enormous market. It's global. I've been all around the world, and I've never been to a city where there weren't a bunch of buses spewing a bunch of diesel exhaust and making things kind of miserable. So what Vicinity Motor has, we had William Trainer, CEO today, is a solution in a shorter version of bus, about 30 feet. You might be used to 40 feet buses, or even here in New York, we have articulated ones, which God knows how long. That is much cheaper and is actually saleable. Are they selling it? Yeah, they just won a huge contract with Calgary municipality. And what Bill said today is that they beat 10 other companies there. Well, then some bigger ones you probably have already heard of. You mentioned them, but that's really impressive that a small company can do that and can win. Why can they win? Well, they have technology. They're using ore-based batteries, like by BMW, one of the companies I used to follow old days when I was an auto. And I think that gives them a huge opportunity because some of the technology out there for electric buses is honestly horrible. And we've had companies like Proterra, Bill and I talked about this in the Q&A, that have basically had epic fail, places like Philadelphia. Batteries are too heavy on the roof, you get cracking, you get all this stuff. It just, there's a better idea. And City Motor now on NASDAQ, BEV, is a great way to play that. Next presentation was Paul Gill, Paul from, and I think that they've been sitting on this thing. They've done, Lamico does different things, does different kinds of products. It's sitting on this prospect, which is 25 square kilometers in Quebec, called La Loutre. And as of last night, yesterday after the market closed, they came out with a preliminary economic assessment that showed this thing has just phenomenal IRRs, NPVs, whatever you want to look at it. It's on the web. You can check it out. It's 18 long. But yeah, so this is a tiny company. It's up a lot today, as you would expect, but 30 million Canadian market cap, maybe, looking to spend, looking at a project that would cost probably 250 million. Paul and I went back and forth on that a little bit, but Canadian. And someone needs to fill out a gap. Is it a bigger entity? Do we go back to the Nano One where your JVs and royalties? There are so many options, but we need the graph. We are going to be making a lot more electric vehicle batteries in the country, and again, Mozambique, China, all these places, and it's on ship. The ships are run with hydrocarbons, so it just makes no sense unless it's from a decarbonization standpoint, unless materials are local. And North America has a lot of graphite, which kind of suffered, if you look at graphite price, for lack of industrial uses. But that is not the case. All is sitting on gold. That's not actually gold, but it's still very valuable. And now with Lamico Metals, the next steps will be how to get it down. 2022, pre-feasibility analysis, then feasibility analysis, maybe 2025 to get the mine open. So between now and then, there are a lot of options from a corporate standpoint, but from a market standpoint, yeah, there are just going to be a lot of vehicles. And Andrew pointed out from Vicinity correctly, they're not all cars, they're not all Tesla. Everything is. And so, as I said, Lamico is sitting on a graphite gold mine. Finally, we had Sue Ozdemir from Exro Technologies, and this was so much new stuff in this presentation. It actually overwhelmed me, and that's kind of hard to do. But I think what you're seeing with Exro is that it's a bunch of smart people, like Nano One, a bunch of smart engineers, and they're coming up with some interesting ideas to solve a problem. So in Exro's case, oil driver obviously gives you multiple torque profiles, same motor. But things I heard today that I didn't know was the Second Life battery project. They had put out a press release on that a couple of weeks ago. It was good to hear more today, where you're repurposing car and truck battery cells into stacks for station. Is a great business. I think it's actually Tesla's best business. And it's just going to keep growing, growing, and growing. And as decarbonization goes, there are other technologies, like vanadium redox flow batteries, blah, blah, blah. There's always competition, but if we can get these old cells into new batteries, new stacks, not put them in landfills, then that's a win. And I think also, Sue was really a lot of ground, but talking about VGG, Volkswagen talked about in their Power Day in March, which is where you're using the excess energy from your electric vehicle to go to the grid. How many grid problems have we had, especially in America lately? A lot. So I think that's amazing that there's just the ability to drill down to the individual level of power, whatever that is, watts, amps, volts. I never pay attention in those classes, but they can do that. And what Sue was saying today is that the coil driver can be very integral to that process and to really creating a looped network um, in terms of where's the power generated. And you know, if you go on Google, you're going to find a lot of pictures of landfills with battery materials that don't look that great. Man, what's the point? So XRO on the second life battery side has a very interesting technology. There are, as you mentioned, other companies working on it. But that's one to watch. And in the short term, I think you're going to continue to see press releases about more partnerships and customer relationships with the coil driver. Um, and you know, I think that works best. You need some kind of inverter. Tesla technology is different, but smaller e-bikes and scooters, larger trucks, buses, trains. That's really where the multiple torque profiles can hugely beneficial, and that's exactly what XRO does. And just watching the press release. And yeah, that was really it. So technical difficulties, not feeling great about that, but got to hear 5 really amazing presentations and 5 companies that are well capitalized. That's always a very important slide. I tend to talk more about the business than the actual number, but that's well capitalized, in great shape. Stock price, you know, macro is going to drive the micro, but in terms of growing and disrupting the old-fashioned hydrocarbon-based energy system that we have, not just transportation, but energy, it's happening. I think your portfolio should have some exposure. And that's basically it. So what I'm going to do is chop up the individual presentation and repost